The way that students learn today is pretty much the way students have learned 150 years ago, right? Every single industry has actually been disrupted. Companies have been disrupted. Education has not. Even YouTube did not disrupt, even though most students learn more from YouTube than their instructors, just so you know. This is going to disrupt, but it's going to take a while.
So let me ask you a tough question, and I know, again, some of your colleagues are here, so I'm not trying to deconstruct higher ed, but one of the cool things that generative AI allows us to do from an education standpoint is perhaps democratize the process of education. So if you learn on a differentiated curve, or you're this kind of learner or that kind of learner, or you're fast or slow or what have you, you can customize how you learn by generating the ideal rubric, the ideal syllabus, the ideal course catalog for you specifically. And that's one. And then two, you can get the content and stuff from the chat box. So again, impact on college and careers. We'll get to careers in a minute. But college, is there a threat to school in general, how education's done, and to higher eds by these ever-growing sophisticated chatbots that could replace professors, could replace this, and in a structure that costs a lot to go to university? Is that an issue? How do you all think about that?
So yes, it's a threat. But it's one of these things that's going to take a while to disrupt. Just in terms of education, I always say we are probably one of the oldest agencies that has not changed. The way that students learn today is pretty much the way students have learned 150 years ago, right? Every single industry has actually been disrupted. Companies have been disrupted. Education has not. Even YouTube did not disrupt, even though most students learn more from YouTube than their instructors, just so you know. This is going to disrupt, but it's going to take a while. And why is that? So one is that we're going to start seeing colleges close. In Ohio, we've also seen this already. There's been a few colleges that close. And so the first tranche is going to be students are just going to come to the larger flagship universities. They're feeding for it. They're feeding for, being a Buckeye, going to the games. I might go to class, but if it's at 7 a.m., maybe not. But then what's going to happen is that students are going to realize, wait, I can learn faster if I'm using these tools than the faculty members teaching me. Wait, maybe I can skip out and take another type of exam. Maybe I can do online and take some online college that exists that's just using AI professors. And so it's going to start changing. What we see right now, for example, is companies, I won't name them, Google, are actually...
Strike that out the video.
are actually creating curriculum that's using basically AI professors to fast track their employees. So this is going to be disruptive. I will say the college, the university that figures this out first will be the winner, like with that school up north. And so I think one is that we need to be intentional about changing. I would say here at Ohio State, we are intentional about thinking of how we do this, but it's not across the nation. But it will disrupt, guaranteed.
Wow, very interesting. Thanks for the sobering conversation on that piece. So the second piece of today's topic is careers. A lot of young people in the audience. You touched on it earlier that generative AI is going to be part of every industry sector, so presumably every job, etc. What advice would you give to the younger folks in the audience who are thinking about future careers and how they should prepare in terms of diving in to learn about AI? So in the video, for example, we said, don't, be cautious, but definitely explore, use the tool, etc. And that's general knowledge. But from a real educational kind of career development lane, what recommendation or advice would you share related to how to think about generative AI?
So I would say be intentional on trying to figure out how you can disrupt your own job. So what does that mean? Say you are an accountant. Go open up ChatGPT or Gemini Bard or Claude, whatever is out there that's out. And think about, okay, how do I do my job? Let's think about my first task. How well does the tool do my task? And you might say, oh, actually it's like 80% accurate. All right, this is like an issue. And so what you're going to find, though, is that there's going to be areas where it's not going to be able to do your whatever task that is. It's going to fail. And so when you're thinking about this, it's like, okay, if I think about my career and how it's adapting, those areas where it's failing, that's where the human value is going to happen. And so let's think about, okay, how do I expand that as being, okay, I'm really valuable in this job because I can do this, but you have to be the one that brings it up. Because otherwise, you're going to have companies say, oh, we can have this tool do your job. And you can be like, yeah, but for this task, it fails, and here's the data to show it. But you have to be intentional of figuring out how to disrupt your own job, and all these tools are open so you can practice.
I mean, that's great. Great advice. And so this is my last question, then we're going to come to the audience. So think about your questions as I tee up this last question here. So more of a biopic question. People, I know this because I know you, people always ask this question, but for the audience, a little bit about your background, your track, and how does it feel to be the first black and first female dean of the College of Engineering at The Ohio State? I mean, I'm sure, I don't know what you thought about when you're 6 months old or 1 year old, but probably weren't necessarily thinking this. Talk to us a little bit about your pathway, and then how does it actually feel to achieve that accomplishment?
So I will say, I've always been in the room where I've been the first. And it's not because I chose to be the first, it's just because I like certain things, and I'm like, oh, I can do that. And then I'm like, oh, well, everyone else doesn't think I can. And I'm very stubborn. So it's like, I'm going to show them. And so it actually started. So for those of you who don't know, my first career was with NASA. And so I was a Mars roboticist. And I was basically the only female on the team. And so I was like, oh, well, why don't you bring the scientists, because we need to figure out how to get their knowledge into the machine. And they were like, well, scientists, like, they're over there. I was like, yeah, but they're people. And so it
Thank you. I'm a scientist, so I appreciate you democratizing our lane.
So this was the whole thing, but I think one of the things as I've learned is because I view the world differently. I believe in community. I grew up where community was so important, thinking about the scientists not just as, oh, they're the scientists, like, wait, I need them. How do I design spaces so that everyone can contribute their knowledge equally? That was really the special sauce, but it came from how I grew up. And so every time I'm in the room and I'm the first, it's like, okay, this is weird and this is wrong. How do I make space so that I'm not the only? And so coming here, it's around, okay, I am the first. This is weird, and this is wrong. So how do I make sure that I'm not the only? Which means that it's fun. And then I have students who are open to think about, oh, this is weird because she's changing stuff on us like in midstream, but you know what? It's good for everyone.
No, I love that. And I mean, literally practicing what she preaches. Remember, she was the dean at Georgia Tech before. She could have just stayed there. But again, keep making sure that we change the narrative and show possibilities. So I love that and love the stubbornness. Sometimes that's what it takes to get through. So with that, want to open it up to the audience.